he was going back and forth with the other lawyer saying like, I'm not, I've already apologized 100 times. I'm not apologizing anymore. And when I forget what he said, he kept pointing and saying that these are real people. Like the attorney was telling Jones about the parents of the victims. And Jones is like, yeah, just like all the Iraqis you liberals killed and love. Just you're unbelievable. You switch on emotions on and off when you want. You're just ambulance chasing. So he's going off about this in the courtroom.
Wow.
In front of the parents.
Wow.
And the exchange goes on, and then the other attorney's like, well, they lost children, sisters, wives, and moms. And Jones is like, is this a struggle session? Are we in China? I've already said I'm sorry hundreds of times, and I'm done saying I'm sorry.
Wow.
He went off at him. So anyway, I just wanted to comment on that. That was
yeah, that's amazing.
Incredible.
I think of Robbie Martin in their episode Media Roots recently about that a multiple part episode on how Alex Jones has been controlled opposition since the beginning. And he said after 9/11, the actual journalist original truth world that knew something was going on with 9/11, like the Abby Martins of the world, they didn't have any media that was talking about what the real people knew about. Like it wasn't a thing yet, and 9/11 sparked it off.
There wasn't alternative media sources like we have today where it's decentralized on the internet. Back then you had ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox, like those were your main media outlets, and they were going to just tell you the main narrative. They had
independent media, but they didn't have as many of them that was talking about what was the big deal. So 9/11 was a big deal, but just nobody was talking about it. Alex Jones was one of the first ones talking about it, and he got the attention of that world first. That's where he blew up, was in like the actual true journalism world and people that were in the actual vein of truth, so to speak. So Robbie Martin knew right away something was off with him because he would go to his website because they were listeners of Alex Jones basically back in the day. He wasn't always this radical character, but he noticed right away on his website there was an article about like American soldiers frozen in freezers in Afghanistan or something, like 5,000 soldiers in Bagram or whatever the city name is. And it was so absurd. He said this article headline was so absurd, there's no way it's true. Like, where are all these 5,000 families? They're not speaking up right now. 5,000 soldiers that never came home, and they're so from the beginning, Robbie Martin knew he was intentionally, and he went on to break down a whole timeline of Alex Jones's intentional misinformation. It was a thing Alex Jones always did in the midst of reporting on the real veins of truth. And I didn't know.
Think he's controlled opposition?
That's what Robbie Martin's saying. But this Sandy Hook thing is the modern, recent, current huge explosion. And I think Alex Jones in all of this has had to reconcile with the fact that what he's always done. This was another one. This wasn't the first intentional misinformation coming from Alex Jones. Saying this goes back to right after 9/11 when the Iraq war started. He was throwing these little intentional.
So you think the CIA is pulling strings on Alex Jones?
That's not what I'm getting at. What I'm getting at is this is this Sandy Hook trial, and he's admitting he's wrong. He came out and said I was wrong. He's never done it for anything else, but this one was like too far. This is like a pattern that goes.
Oh, so you think that he was just intentionally?
He's always been intentionally putting out misinformation.
For what gain for himself?
I don't know. That's the whole question. But he's always done it. Robbie Martin pointed it out. So that's what I think of when the Sandy Hook trial, and whenever he admits that he's wrong, I'm like, it's another. This one just went too far.
And I guess so.
I don't think that made any sense, but
it made a little sense. I just don't get why he would, like, for what purpose he would. I mean, if he's not in bed with the government, is what I'm saying. Like, why would he be?
That's the answer to the question.
Is he's in bed with the government?
He's controlled opposition.
Right. I get what. Then that's what I meant. Like, what controlled opposition means. I understand that, but like, I don't know.
I'm only saying Sandy Hook is not the first time he did this. Robbie Martin points out that this goes back to whenever he broke out on the scene talking about 9/11.
Well, my thought is like, if he's in bed with the government, why would he be in trial right now? Like in multiple trials, getting, facing charges or fines with this shit. If the government were the ones pulling the strings on this, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, why would he intentionally put out ridiculous information like that in the midst of a lot of true things that he's?
Or he could just be a fucking crazy person who gets some things right and then also makes up some shit as well.
Well, there was a cult-like following that Robbie and them were talking about whenever he did break out, was that everybody they knew, all their close friends that were like truthers at that time, which is a different thing than what it's considered now. But truther at the time. So there was this, how do I say it? They would all say, oh, Alex Jones, he's right about everything. Oh, we believe everything he says. Like, it was like this really zealot thing that took over.
Yeah.
Reasonable people, their friends, reasonable people. At that time when Alex Jones broke out, it was like a cult movement in the real smart crowd. And then over time, it turned into this.
I could see why that would be the case, because
that's an interesting part I never knew about Alex Jones, that he tapped into the real in the beginning. And also did Sandy Hook type shit in the beginning. It's just it wasn't until Sandy Hook that it blew up in his face.
Right.
There's never anything else he had to come out and be like, I was wrong. He embraces all of it. But this one got to a point where he's like, okay, I was wrong. And I don't know what the plan would be if he's controlled opposition, but I mean...
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to see the angle from the government side of things, especially right now. They're like, all right, we're fucking done with you, so we're going to crucify you.
Well, let's think about COINTELPRO. This is my answer to that. COINTELPRO works like this, where you take extreme examples and you use it to smear the real movement, or you infiltrate it. So Alex Jones gets into the actual truth movement, but then he smears it by putting out ridiculous things that make it all look bad. So yeah, Sandy Hook, let's say Sandy Hook was a false flag, but people did die and they weren't crisis actors. Maybe it was a CIA MK Ultra thing where they set up a mass shooting so they could have more reasons to take away our guns and implement global control. Maybe he's playing the other side to help make it all so unbelievable that people don't pay attention. Like the shooting happened. And
okay, I can see guns. That being a reason to have someone like crazy like Alex Jones on the scene. Yeah, that makes
COINTELPRO is basically what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Okay, so, I can see that.
Yeah. But what does he get out of it? I mean, he doesn't seem to give a shit, so maybe...
He's going hard in the courtroom.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so interesting.